maybe now just to get started, do you want to just give a brief explanation, maybe to explain a little bit about where you're at in life right now and what you do and with your time and all that kind of stuff, just to give sort of a brief overview, nothing
Yep.
too detailed.
So I am 38 years old. I have loved animals forever, since I was a wee girl. From the age of about 11, my mum says it was 9, but I'm pretty sure it was 11, I decided to go vegetarian purely for the reason that I loved animals and I didn't want to eat them anymore. It was that basic. I had cats and dogs, and I just thought, I mean, I don't know exactly really the train of thought because you're talking about 20, I can't even do the maths on that. 38 take 11, how ridiculous. 20, 27 years ago. So, it was purely because I loved animals, didn't want to eat them anymore. And luckily for me, my mum was happy to put me on a vegetarian diet. No one else in my family to this very day is vegetarian, let alone vegan. Um, I had to do it in a reductionist kind of way. I had to start off cutting out red meat was the first thing to go because she didn't want me to stop eating all animals straight away, and then chicken, and then finally was fish. So by the time I was 15, I was lacto-ovo vegetarian, and I always wanted to be vegan, but for me the hardest thing was Tim Tams, ice cream, chocolate. How on earth do I give up those things? I used to get a lot of challenges from people, mostly my family, about being a hypocrite because they would say, well, you still wear leather and you still drink milk. And back then, my response was, well, animals don't die for leather production, for milk production. Little did I know that, yes, of course they do. And the amount of suffering that they are faced in order to, in terms of the process of producing leather, producing milk, producing eggs, what have you. But I didn't know that. I was like, well, I was a school kid. Um, and then I learnt. I remember when I think it was I went to England and lived there for a year, and I came back checking my emails and had my emails from Animals Australia, Animal Lib, what have you, and there was a dairy email, there was an egg email. I looked into it, I researched it, and I was like, that's it. I am a hypocrite and I can't do this anymore. And since then I have this big thing about, this big problem of being a hypocrite. Like it follows me around in everything that I do. Cannot be hypocritical.
Well, meaning
Um,
you check yourself on the fly all the time to make sure you're
yeah,
not being a
yeah.
hypocrite, right?
Exactly. It's just been ingrained in me because of, my family giving me crap when I was a teenager, trying to
Yeah.
do the best thing for animals that I knew how. And then, yeah, so that was about 11 years ago, I think. And then it was near Christmas time and I went over to the family's house and was like, I'm vegan. What are you going to eat at Christmas? Oh my God. It was all about them, and it's like, this is my life and I'm not going to eat any animal products anymore. So
Mm.
I'll find something to eat, it won't be a problem. I'll just take care of it. So, animals really, they're my guiding light. Everything I do comes back to that. My purpose in life, it's all about the animals. It's all about doing everything in my power to improve their lives, whether it's via the law, whether it's via education, whether it's via nutrition, massage therapy, what have you. It's my main goal is to, as I said, do everything that I can and to dedicate my time to improving animals' lives.
Mm.
They're suffering because of humans and of ignorance. And, if everyone like, with the passion that I have, that you have, what have you, stood up and, did the work and spoke about the issues and,
Mm.
even if you're only saving one animal, even if you're only changing the mind of one person,
Mm.
every little helps. Um, so how do I live my life helping animals? I mean, I'm a lawyer by trade. I spend a lot of time doing non-animal related work because I need to pay the bills. And there aren't many jobs where you can work with animals and get paid. I
Mm.
had that. I was legal counsel for Voiceless for 2.5 years in Sydney. That was my dream job. I left for various reasons. Still to this very day, I have moments where I regret leaving because everything I do in my spare time now, or a lot of what I do in my spare time now, I was getting paid to do.
Mm.
You know, um, it was a really hard job. It was emotionally hard because I had to 24/7 be on top of what was happening with respect to animals subject to factory farming, animals subject to the kangaroo industry. They were the two, their voices as two main focus areas, as well as animal law in general. So I had to be on top of everything. I had to be ready if a journalist rang and wanted to interview me about, the latest live export expose or whatever. I had to be ready on the ball to answer those questions. I had to know what the issues are. I had to know what was going on.
Yeah.
So all the exposés, everything, we had to watch them, all the articles, I had to read them. And that was really, really, really challenging. And that was one of the reasons why I left. But I identified then that I needed so much, and anyone who works in that capacity, in an indirect capacity, that is helping animals indirectly, it's so important to have that direct interaction with animals to remind us why we do what we do, so that we don't lose sight of it, but also to have that connection with them. And that was the thing that kept me going, was coming home to my cats and being there with them and being able to say to them, thank God you're not a kangaroo, or you're not a cow, you're not a pig, or you're not a chicken, or you're not someone else's cat, and you've been dumped, or what have you. Knowing that they're safe, and I have direct responsibility for them, for giving them the best life that they can have, where they feel safe, secure, and loved. Huge, massive part of being an animal advocate is having that. So it was from that, when I left Voices and I came back to Brisbane to be a normal lawyer, I identified where I wanted to take myself in terms of my life path, and I started studying a diploma of small animal naturopathy, because again, focusing then on the direct interaction. I always knew, and I always will do all of the animal law related pro bono work, writing submissions, assisting animal organisations, what have you, giving presentations, speaking at rallies. I will always do that work. But again, finding things to do so I can, eventually one day step away from the work that is not connected to my purpose, and be doing that full time. I mean, I don't know when that's going to happen. Could be a while. But in the meantime, I do everything I do with the animal naturopathy direct. There's nothing better than going to a family and sitting down with them and having a discussion about what is the optimum diet for their cat or for their dog, so that they can be in a state of optimum nutrition, so that they won't get sick, so that they can live a long and happy life, which is what we want. The animals are part of our family, so we want to make sure they're getting everything they need. So, that's, in terms of animal advocacy, that's really, it's so individualistic. It's not about saving kangaroos. It's not about saving a species. It's just about helping someone give all the love that the animal deserves, that they've taken on that responsibility, and giving them that love and nurturing them and giving them what they need. And then the organisations that I'm involved with, there's a number of organisations, Animal Law Institute. I'm a member of the Voices Legal Advisory Council, a board member of Minding Animals International, an academic associate for the UTS Centre for Compassionate Conservation. And I have involvement in the Australian Animal Protection Law Journal as well. So that's how I keep my finger in the pie from a legal perspective. That's how I keep using those skills to do good for animals, because it's so important. If you have skills, and there are so many different skills. It can even be if you've got IT skills. So many animal organisations that are charities need something like, a volunteer who can help with them with all their IT problems and what have you. So for me, it's just identifying where I can help. Giving the time to do that.
Do your legal qualifications or skills go into the realm of being able to help out like animal activists as well, or is it just for the animals particularly?
Well, because at the moment my animal law work is tied to organisations. So
Yeah.
I don't have the relevant certificates to run my own business as an animal lawyer. So in
Right.
terms of providing animal advocates with protection, yeah, I don't have the insurances. I don't have the relevant certificate in order to do that. That's not to say one day I may not. That may be something that I do down the track, in terms of different businesses that I do to allow me to, spend all of my time working for animals. So yeah, to answer that question, I'd have to say no, unless it was connected somehow to one of the organisations that I'm connected to, and that assistance was needed
Yeah.
through that.
So why do you think it is that someone like yourself has to devote so much of their life to helping animals in the first place? Like, as a member of the human species, why do you think that, the majority of humans seem to have a very different attitude to you, and one might even think you're a bit soft or a bit weak or a bit fluffy around the edges for caring about animals when, God gave us this planet to run, control over and do what we like, pretty much seems to be the theory of human beings. So,
Yeah.
So why do you think that is? What's your take on it? Why is it here we are in 2016? There's no lack of knowledge, no lack of information. People can all watch the videos and what's going on in the world. Why do you think humans are capable of seeing the suffering and abuse of other living beings less advantaged than them, and to care so little to the point where they're happy to eat their flesh and take pleasure from that after the animal being abused and murdered? Like, why do you think that is, that so many humans just have such a blasé attitude about it?
I think there are a number of reasons. A lot of it's like anything really, when, someone's individual values stem from what they've been exposed to in the main, what they've been exposed to within their family, what their family's values are, what their friends' values are, what their colleagues' values are. But then saying that, if you look at me and my family, I didn't get what I have now in terms of my passion for animals from my family.
Yeah.
Some of it I may have in terms we always had cats and dogs. I always had exposure to animals. There was a certain level of appreciation for animals, particularly through my grandparents when they would come out from England and we go bushwalking, and they'd love looking at the birds and all of that. So certainly there's that influence from my family, but a lot of people have that influence in terms of you go to the zoo as a kid or whatever. I think, and if you want to talk about all being weak and fluffy and whatever around the edges, this is going to sound really fluffy. I think a lot of it becomes from your spirit, from, I believe in reincarnation. I don't have a problem with saying that on wherever this is going to end up. I think there has to be an explanation for why someone can build a set of values that aren't connected to their life growing up. There's not really an influence there that's going to allow them to be the person they be as an adult. So all I can think for me is, well, two things is some people just have a stronger connection with animals. We feel more of an affinity with animals. We feel a greater level of respect because of that connection. When I connect much better with animals than I do with humans, and a lot of animal advocates will say that. And I think that's just because we feel, I can't say it another way, that we have that connection with them. We look at them and we see them as equals. We don't see them as, oh, it's just a cat, or it's just a dog, or it's just a cow, I want some steak. It really is about, they're here, we're here. Whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe that, God has granted us dominion over this planet. And, even, there's arguments as to the extent that God has granted human beings control over the planet. So whether you believe that or not, that is not even something that comes into my frame of mind when I think about animals. It's only because you asked the question that I'm trying to bring it back to that. It's purely that connection, and also I think the values that you have, separate from any influences that you've had growing up, has to come from somewhere. And all I can think is it's come from your previous experiences, without sounding too wacky, of living.
Well, that's true. I mean, obviously, our learning and our influences have a big impact on who we are and what we become. I mean, we can see that you grow up in Australia and you become an Australian. So it just shows you how easy it is to slot into some sort of mindset of a kind. But it doesn't change the fact that globally, in every culture, everywhere on the planet, it's the same story. It's not like there's Sweden are these loving people and all they do is care for animals and humans, but all the other countries aren't. Every single country on the planet, every human being on the planet, in the main, seems to think that disrespecting animals' lives is fine and acceptable. So like beyond learning, it's almost like we're doing what we're meant to be doing, if you know what I mean? Because you can't just say that's a learning influence, because then you've got to say that's the learning influence of centuries, of thousands of years. Maybe we're just seeing what we are. We're just seeing the truth. And I guess the question is, for someone like yourself, can we change what you see? Because obviously you feel it's inappropriate, but to most people it's quite appropriate, to the point where, like that debate you were on, there are people that are prepared to actually get up and to defend the abuse and murder and torture and experimentation of animals for human gain. They'll actually publicly expose themselves and defend the abuse and cruelty, which is quite extreme, let alone those that just sort of hide and don't really say too much and, eat their burgers or whatever they're eating. So to me, it looks like we're looking at, we've got to sit back, like you and I need to sit back and look at the world, for example, and see this for what it is. This hasn't come out of nowhere, and we don't just treat animals badly, we've been treating each other like crap for eternity. I mean, it's not that long ago, if you look back in the history of humanity, the horrible things we've been doing to each other and continue to do if we can get away with it. It's only increased laws and controls, and police have guns and tasers and pepper spray, and everyone's so terrified to break the rules that they, rarely does things go wrong. But, there's been plenty of human experiments as well that show if you give humans the chance, they will take a more dominant, abusive role if the opportunity is there. So we get a bit of a kick out of dominating things.
Definitely.
And that's what I think eating an animal is. It's a power trip. What else could it be? Because we don't need it to live. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for your health. It doesn't matter how much people try and justify it. The healthiest people in the world that I've ever met are vegan. Since I've become vegan, my immune system, I would, I'm not exaggerating, it's probably 3 times better. And I didn't even do it for that. I didn't even think about health as a reason. For me, it was just I saw the obscenity of looking at these poor innocent faces at the hands of evil human beings. And of course, there was no way I could partake in that once the true information came through. But yes, there's health benefits. There's so many benefits that it's endless. And yet there's still people trying to debate that we should maintain our existing ways of being in the face of the fact that our existing way of being is destroying the planet. So here we are observing a way of being unfolding, right? And that way of being hasn't changed, and it's not changing, and all the debates in the world don't change it. All the laws in the world don't change it, because laws don't change the nature of who we are. They just control who we are. So we have a real issue here, I see, as a species, where I feel we need to start trying to nut in and help each other work out what's really going on. And the real question to me is, can we change how we function? Because there are individuals like yourself that this is all clear and obvious and straightforward, right? But that's not the norm. So there's going to have to be a fundamental shift from within humans, to the point where you could almost throw the animal topic to the side temporarily, right? Because it's an outcome of many, including destroying the planet and each other, and let alone the psychology of human beings. Like, we're deteriorating, even though people still debate this with me, and I won't debate it, because I just feel no need to debate. Truth is truth. Psychologically, we're slipping, and you can see it. Everyone's fearful. Everyone's more insecure than ever, more obsessed with materialism than ever, more obsessed with, how they look more than they've ever been. And you can see that whether it be men at the gym taking steroids, or women, with all the enhancements they can get, or plastic surgery. There's endless things we can do. So the world just keeps offering us more and more. And the only reason that's happening is because we're so damn insecure. So businessmen, so the government, businessmen feed off insecurity. And it happens so gradually that we don't even see it as wrong. It just becomes normal. That's just the nature of the beast. And we call it, survival of the fittest or whatever. And on we go, justifying our insane behavior.
Yeah.
But that behavior it's not just about, someone coming home and eating their meat, saying, I like my meat, so leave me alone. No, they're contributing to the destruction of life on Earth, including their own internal destruction, because to justify murder and abuse, it means you're living in you're not real. You're living in a conceptual space, right? A real person is someone that lives in the truth of them and the truth of life. A conceptual person lives in thoughts and ideas of their own, thinking they're real when they're not. So they're not even a real person as such, which sounds extreme. And a lot of people would say, oh, I am real and I eat meat, I can do what I like. Well, they can say what they like. It doesn't change the facts. The facts are we're trapped in a world where we can justify just about anything, and only in a conceptual space can we do that, right? In the truth is a very different space. Things are what they are. In a concept, we've all got our opinions, but it's getting insane for us to allow opinions to be guiding life on planet Earth because, look at the leaders of our Australia or America or, the men that are guiding the future of humanity. Aren't the smartest cookies in the jar, and they're not very aware, they're not compassionate, and people that think that we can keep existing without compassion are obviously missing the point. That's one of the key things lacking on the thing. So given that we're witnessing this flow, so here, make it like you and I just happen to be popped at this moment in time in the history of humanity, and we're just seeing the flow. So I guess what I'm suggesting, we could cut a cross section through life today, yesterday, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, or 50 years in the future. And chances are we're just going to see the same thing in a different disguise. We don't learn. We didn't learn from, women getting their rights or gay people still struggling to get their rights.
Yeah.
What chances have the animals got when gay people can't even get rights? So we still push people down just because they're different. Let alone, creatures that have hair on them and funny differences that somehow gives us the right to put them in a different category. So I guess what I feel is we're going to go deeper into what's really going on and what we're going to do about it for real. Because yes, I agree, getting through to one person is better than nobody. But we can't forget that these little animals, we talk about them, I think, too generically sometimes. I'm not suggesting you do, but and I think it's very sad because everyone is an individual. I mean, to share a quick story, I rescued a little dog 7 years ago now, and there were two brothers, and they were about to be, no one wanted them. They were about 8 weeks of age. They were about to be separated. One was going to be sent off to Sydney and one somewhere else because nobody wanted them. And I turned up, and they were the most skinny, pathetic-looking dogs I've ever seen. And I was like, oh, God, look at these little guys. And one of them was just like begging to be taken. The other one was like terrified. And then found out a story that at the beginning of his life was lost under a house. So he was on his own for weeks. And anyway, the point I'm making is when I found him and before I brought him home, he had no personality whatsoever. Just looked like a thing, most people would probably describe it as just a stupid dog, stupid little thing. But the truth is, I picked him up, I looked in his eyes, and I said, "Show me you're in there." And he did. Something came through. Now, the point I'm making is 7 years later, he is the most intelligent, advanced, sensitive, aware creature I've ever come across. Just by chance, I didn't have a clue that that's what I had landed into at the time. He is rich with thoughts and feelings and personality, and he's sensitive. Getting through a whole day is a big thing, just like a human, And so we are underestimating that every little guy, every little sheep, every little baby lamb, every calf, every poor dairy cow trapped in there having her tits sucked off by some horrible machine every day. Why humans want to drink the breast milk of another species is quite weird. But anyway, we do, and we eat chicken periods, and we eat all sorts of weird stuff. But, the facts are that everyone is an individual. And this, to me, is why we can't get lost in strategizing this. I think we have to stand up and stop it, is what I think. And I think that means people that can see the truth need to stand up stronger in the truth, because otherwise the majority are going to walk right over the top of us. Right?
Continue to walk right over the top of us. Because they're the majority.
Well, their mates back them up. Don't listen to bloody Ruth, John or whoever.
She's crazy.
Yeah, she's crazy. But if we had the numbers, it would be different. But I tell you what we do have on our side. We have truth on our side. And we have beauty on our side. We have heart on our side. And we have strength, intelligence, and integrity, because it takes a bit of strength, courage, and intelligence to even get to this point in the first place. It's not a wishy-washy space. It's an extremely powerful place where you're prepared to disadvantage your own life to be here in the first place. Like you miss
Yep.
out on 98% of what society creates and offers, almost if you really go pure. If you don't
Yeah.
if you don't want
Yep.
to live as a hypocrite, there's. But do I feel like I'm missing out on anything? Not at all. I feel like my life is rich and full, and the most amazing journey I could go on is to grow as a man and become a decent human being, which is exactly what we're told to be when we're kids, right?
Yeah.
So when you become it, you put down and ridicule, which is kind of strange. So when you finally do and become everything that society says we should be, society shows you no respect.
Mm.
Um, so how are we going to stop this if we don't all get stronger? So they'll bring back your hypocrite question. Where in yourself do you think that you're still compromising your life? Where because you talk very powerfully, and I can see you're genuine about your feelings and about the animals, and that's very clear. You've got no shortage, I'm sure, of things to say about it. But in your own life, do you feel you are truly standing in it yet? Have you found that strength to truly say I am a representation of my own inner world, and therefore there's no hypocrisy between the world I connect with and the world that I feel inside?
I'm in no way perfect in terms of my veganism, if you
Yeah,
want to call, if we're talking about being a vegan, or if we're talking about being an animal advocate, and they're connected. Um, you have in the vegan community, you have so many different shades of vegans, and you have right at the, well, I guess if you're talking about it from a political perspective, you'd have right at the, well, I don't know who's more extreme, the left or the right. I'm going to go with the right's more extreme than the left. So you have right over there in the right is like the extremist, the most extreme of vegans, where there is no, everything has to be perfect. If you eat honey, you can't call yourself a vegan. If I can't think of any of the other ones. But for me, sometimes I eat honey, and I will say that loud and clear on a recording. I am not 100% perfect vegan because I eat honey. My boyfriend bought me a silk dress for my birthday. I have never purchased a silk item for myself, but when my boyfriend goes and spends hundreds of dollars on a silk dress for my birthday, am I going to turn around to him and say, I'm sorry, I can't take that? Yes, I could, and some vegans would do that.
I was
A
about to
lot
say
of
you
vegans,
could.
you may do that. That's
Yeah,
right, but I chose not to. But I don't, yeah, there'd be a load of people out there that would be bashing me, right? Not physically, but would be bashing me right now, saying, "Well, you're not a vegan. You've got a silk dress, and you occasionally eat honey."
yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, but I have refrained from eating animals, or started from eating animals, from the time I was 11. A lot of these people, some of them are only, newish vegans. So for most of my life, I have refrained from eating animals and eating animal parts and wearing animal products. If I occasionally have some honey, and I'm still not honey, like I'm still not, I still I do appreciate the suffering that goes on in the production of honey. But at the same time, and for all those, vegans way, way, way on the right over there, I have killed mosquitoes. I have killed ants, whether it's been, ants is accidentally. I never do that on purpose. I might just be walking down the street and oops, I stole an ant. I'm like, shit, I'm so sorry. Um, so there's those kinds of things where it's like, yes, I'm not a perfect all, forsaking all. It's only ever honey and the one silk dress that my boyfriend bought me. Um, everything else, everything else is 100% as far as I have control of it. Because you would know that we can't control everything in
Well, that's
terms of,
right. Yeah,
I don't, this table I've got right now, this computer I've got right now, this, you know, I don't know if everything around me or everything that I've purchased is 100% vegan. Where I can find it out, I find it out. All of my cosmetics, all of my skincare, all of my clothes, bar my boyfriend's silk dress that he bought me, all of my shoes, everything that I put on me, everything I consume, with the exception of the honey, all of that is, for me, I'm comfortable with that. And I think a lot of where we lose a lot of traction is by this hard hitting, no, you can't, if you're going to call yourself a vegan, you can't be doing any of that stuff. And you know what? I would rather have a globe of people who the only animal product they eat seldomly is honey than the global population we have right now that causes immense, extreme suffering on a massive, 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 massive scale. And I think also this idea of perfection, we are at the end of the day still human beings. Human beings depends, if you want to be all, everyone's perfect in terms of, everyone's special, everyone's perfect, what have you. But what am I trying to say?
Can I jump in?
I'm going more into and I'm not a welfarist. I'm totally not a welfarist. I'm a rightist. I'm not. Oh my gosh, I'm not Gary Francione. Totally not. I would love to be, but I'm not. That's not who I am. And I just think for me personally, every day I do something outside of being a vegan. Every day I do something that takes a step towards helping animals, even if it's just a conversation, or even if it's, going further, writing a submission, talking to a politician, whatever it is. So if anyone was to come to me and judge me for the occasional honey I had, I would, and I can, with my red hair right now, I can really jump on this fiery bandwagon. I can pretty much say that, excuse me, but the work that I do for animals is huge. And no one is going to tear me down, whether they're a meat eater or a vegan or whatever. Because I know, as you said, I know what is true, I know what is right, and I will keep doing what I'm doing until the day I die. And wherever I can have an influence, I will have that influence. And I really hope my influence is strong. I don't know how do we get to those people who just don't want to listen. Or for whatever reason it is, whether it's a superiority reason, whether it's a taste reason, whether it's this is how I've grown up and these are my values and I don't get that reason. How do we get to those people? I think it's going to be a collaborative project in terms of there has to, behaviorist, psychology, emotion, hard scientific facts. But a lot of that is already being done. But is it done in a collaborative way? I mean,
That's right.
as you know, and as I've just gone through with the vegans, is there's so much disjointedness. If we're all fighting to save animals, we should be fighting together, but at the same time appreciating people's differences and seeing what value they're offering and how can that value be utilized in the best way? How can it be maximized to get the best outcome? And all of this infighting creates weakness in our movement. But there is so much of this infighting and it drives me crazy. And, a lot of the time it's why I love, just in terms of the animal work that I do, I love that it's just me. I get to say yes to what I want to say yes to. I get to say no to what I don't want to do. I get to dictate the work that I take on. So if there's an organisation I want to work with, I work with that organisation. If there's an organisation I don't want to work with, I don't work with that organisation. Whether there's infighting, whether they're an organisation that encourages or facilitates that kind of relationship where it's not a collaborative relationship. At the end of the day, we have to use as our measure animals. We're here to help animals. Is this step that I take going to help animals? If the answer is no, then you don't do it. If the answer is yes, you do it. Is working with this person, is collaborating with this organisation, is the end game going to be that it's going to help animals? How do we know that if we don't have a crystal ball? What does what does our instinct say? That's all we've got to go on. If we, get out of our head and get into our heart and get into our soul, how does that feel? Is working with this person, is working with this organization going to achieve good for animals? And if it's an organization that discourages collaboration, an organization that is aggressive in a way that, sorry, that's my dog because my boyfriend just got home and he's super excited. But you get my point. And I think, that disjointedness, that disconnect between the animal groups, individuals themselves is a big problem. We have to present a united front. We've got the numbers.
Yeah, we've got the numbers, but the united front, I think there has to be, we can't, obviously, judging each other is a waste of time, and judging ourselves is a waste of time. Judgment just is like a cage almost that keeps something trapped. So either it's you doing it to yourself or you're enforcing it on other people and then expecting them somehow to respond lovely, well to your judgment, which is not going to happen. Everyone's just going to defend their reality.
Exactly.
But at the same time, we've still got to shine the light of truth. And the light of truth is that things are what they are. And then we have to keep growing. I think it's our preparedness to keep opening our mind up and keep growing that's important. I think that's what we have to keep doing and looking for. And I think it's, to use your examples, you've got a silk dress and honey occasionally, as you're saying, no one's going to tear me down for that or judge me. But
people will judge me.
Well, I know, but then
definitely.
But in a similar way,
go ahead. I don't care. Whatever.
I know, but there's still, I think there has to be within all of us, wherever we're at, right? I'm sure if someone ran a scanner over my life, they'd go, oh, look, there might be a bit of corruption here and here, maybe not in the animal area, maybe in other areas, maybe some of my clothes, I haven't done enough research as to where they came from or stuff like that. Not because of animal products, but maybe,
slave labor
for human beings, and and I don't know enough about that. I haven't visited those countries, and it's very difficult to find out what's really going on. Have their lives actually been improved? Maybe they didn't even have a life before they got those jobs. I don't know. But the point is, I guess, to me, it's all wrong. The way we treat people is wrong. The fact that exists. So, yes, I don't think we can expect too much of each other because we're all stuck in this corrupt system, right? So for someone to be pure in here, you'd almost have to just go running away into the jungle and learn how to live off the jungle and eat, fruit and whatever and drink out of the river. But then then you're missing as to why we're here. We're here as a species to evolve. We're here to wake up. We're not here to stay as, running around like little monkeys making out we're not for the rest of our life. And I think we've hit that point. We're either going to have to wake up or say, party our way to the end kind of thing. It's like we're on the Titanic. It's hit the iceberg and we're still at the bar ordering the next whiskey.
Yeah.
And at the moment, unfortunately, that's what it's like. So whether you're animal rights, human rights, environmentalist, to me, it makes no difference. And if I shine the light on anybody, there's always going to be something there, like you're pointing out. So I do totally agree with you, but I still feel for us to unite and go on this journey you're talking about, we have to at least acknowledge to each other, no, we're not all perfect, but we're always learning and growing and prepared to learn and grow. So let's just say with the stance that you had on the honey, I think you've got to make that declaration of honesty, which I think is, courageous of you, because a lot of people wouldn't do it because they wouldn't.
A lot of people are going to hate me now.
Well, potentially, sure. There will be.
Again, I'm an animal person, so.
But the point I'm making, though, whether it be eating honey or whether it be someone saying, I'm not giving up, I'll give up this, but I'm not giving up my bacon. I love my bacon, right? And I don't eat it a lot, but I love my bacon. I still think we've got to get real about if there's any abuse and cruelty attached to those systems of functioning, then we have to look at it and keep looking at it, right? And even if, maybe in 2 years you won't eat honey, I don't know. That it's your life, you do what you got to do. But all we can do is just try to help each other inject more truth and goodness into our system. Our system is a corrupt one, and it's a survival one, right? And when you think, we're wild animals that came out of the jungle and built societies, but that doesn't change what we were. So we had to be ruthless, and part of the skills for human beings to succeed, we didn't have the physical prowess. We're weak. Our muscles are weak. We're slow. Our senses are pretty average. Everything about us is average, but we have this problem-solving brain that can outsmart any other creature on the planet easily. But it's a very narrow survival part of our brain, and it relies on manipulation, lies, and all that kind of shit to succeed. And
And
that
we're better collectively than individually.
collectively, yes,
If you look at a non-human animal individually and what they can do versus what a human can do,
absolutely, that's right.
the world we live in now, this high technology world that we live in now, is because we're good collectively. I know nothing about IT. I know nothing about how to build a phone. I don't know any of that stuff, but there's people out there who do. And, it's that collective nature. And that's where humans differ to non-human animals, is individually they can survive, they can fight, they can heal, they can do all these amazing things just by themselves, and that's all they need to do. They don't need to waste their energy on the latest phone or what have you, because you know what? They communicate in the same way that they always have done, and that's all they need to do. It's so simple but so meaningful, and everything, the technology that we have, there's so much technology now that I just like, ugh, I don't want an Apple Watch. I don't want to be reminded every however many seconds or minutes that I have to do something. No, it's bad enough having a phone that's always like going off of what have you. It's just there's way too much technology, and people are forgetting. I think this is the big problem, is people are forgetting what it means to be human. We're not robots, but we're turning into robots.
Mm.
You know, individuality, where is individuality? So many, yeah, there's individuals out there, but so many people are just the spinning image of the next person.
Yes.
And yeah, it's all materialistic. I want this, I want that. And now we're infecting the East with that Western mindset, which for me is a huge issue. Just when you look at animal consumption on its own, the change to the Eastern diet to mimic the Western diet, because, Western industry is so powerful and the East still think that the West is the best, and no, it isn't. So a lot of it is, yeah, I think we're just losing that raw, it's not a human thing. It's that animal thing, the raw animalian of just of being alive, of being aware of our surroundings, the moon, the sun, the trees, the smells, we're losing that. It's all about technology. The latest piece of steel, the latest piece of plastic that's turned and manipulated into something that, we don't really need that.
We don't need it, but we're going to keep creating it because of the way we think, right? Because we're on a narrow, we work in a sequential thinking way, right? We're not, as much as we like to think we're so creative, we're actually not very creative at all. In fact, if we were creative, we would have figured everything going out a long, long time ago, because it's not that hard. If you've got a little bit of creativity, you look at the world and go, well, hello, obviously this is not okay, and we need to be more of this and build this, and you can redesign the whole thing without too much effort. So, but in a problem-solving mode, which is what humans are trapped in, it's not creative at all. They think it is because they keep building on what the last guy did, and then the next guy, and then the next woman, and then the next person, and whatever, and it just keeps building on, and then it creates this illusion of, oh, we're so amazing and so advanced, but our thinking's quite small, and we just add another small thought on another, and that's why science. Look how little our scientists have really discovered to give us any sense of truth about what's going on the planet. They cannot give us an answer as to what, they don't even know anything about what we are. They're trying to work out the universe when they don't even know what they are. They don't even know what consciousness is yet. So, we're so far off the mark. So here we are dealing with this global crisis. We're facing the destruction of the entire planet potentially. And it's not just an idea anymore. Like this is real time. And we're still not talking about it in any real way. We're still acting like it's the consequences that we need to be discussing, which we do, but that has to always come back to us, because it's us creating the consequences we don't like. We're acting like it's someone else creating them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone can individually.
We're not
We
responsible.
all are. We all are. You are.
Of
I am.
course we are.
We
I
all
know
are.
that.
So the fact
There's
is, we have
other
to.
people thinking.
Yes, but we have to get together to change it.
Yeah. Collectively, this is because of the human race.
That's
The
right.
destruction of the planet is because of the human race. It's really that simple.
And if you pluck any individual out, like you said, they are a bit like robots, and that's not because they mean to be, but there's a default mode of functioning that every human being runs around in. And and everyone's default mode is almost identical. Within that, you have an individual personality, different desires, different fears, all that kind of stuff is different. But the mechanisms of functioning are exactly the same within every human being. In fact, we're so far from being individuals. It's the other extreme. We're getting further away from being individuals as we desperately try and put tattoos on our body or whatever it is we're doing. And that's not a judgment of tattoos. It's just one of the many ways that we can try and enhance our physical being. And it doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't make us more of an individual. If anything, it probably makes us more insecure because we're looking externally for the answers. So the whole system is going to keep giving us more and more answers to feed our fear. And the more we get these answers, so two things are being presented: more laws to say you're safer now. Don't worry, the terrorists won't get you. And here's a new iPhone to make you happy and put up with how miserable and scared you are, right? And it just keeps coming. And we're all acting like we're not feeding that. Every day we go to work and pay our taxes, and we're feeding the system. We're feeding the beast. I mean, it's like you're saying about veganism. So if you really want to open up veganism, it's not just about whether someone eats honey or not, or wears a silk dress on an odd occasion. It's about the fact that we're all contributing to the very system that's creating the problems that we're trying to stop.
Yeah.
And vegans are no different than anyone else. They still want their own lives. They still want to have success. They still want to find love. They still want all the other stuff that other humans want. And it's all that wanting that's destroying us. So we've got to really pull back. We've got to step back from our greed, from our desires, and stop satiating them all the time, and have the courage to stop and look at the true status of the world that we live in, what we are collectively as a species, and then we need some help looking at what we are individually within that, so we can see that we are actually contributing to the overall mess. Because as long as you think it's not you, you'll never do anything.
Yeah.
And like, I do my work without thinking anything other than, like you, I can't be perfect, but I'm constantly on a growth to be open and learn and share and put forward as much truth as I know, absorb the truth of others. And I think if we just had this attitude of sharing going on, so we don't get caught up, rather than me going, oh, you crazy woman eating honey, you're not a vegan, and I'm not talking to you, or just spending the whole session putting you down. I'd rather get to know you. We got to get to know each other. We don't even know each other. We barely, couples live together and have sex together, but they don't even know each other. They really don't.
Yeah, and they don't, because a lot of people only have conversations at a very, what's the word, something level, insert the word here, at a very shallow, superficial level. A lot of people don't get down and have the real, serious, deep, meaningful conversations. A lot of people don't unpack life or unpack situations or really talk about, how are you feeling today?
Yes.
And I sound a bit like a shrink then, but people don't have those conversations because
we're emotionally repressed.
They don't want to know.
Well, but they're emotionally repressed, though. I don't think it's just that they don't want to know. I just don't think they're comfortable.
They don't know how to deal.
They don't know how to deal with it. No,
they
don't.
I'm pissed off. Oh, can I swear on this?
Yes, unedited space. You can say what you like.
They don't want
as long as you're happy with it.
Deal with well, anyone who knows me knows I'm a big swearer. It's fine. They don't want to deal with what's real. And for me, I hate small talk. I hate shallow conversations. But if you come and talk to me about something like really deep, like, I don't know, what's the moon, like, what are the moon cycles? Like, what phase is the moon at right now? And what does that mean energetically? And, and wacky stuff like that. If you want to call it wacky, I don't think it's wacky, but I still call it wacky because the mainstream calls it wacky, which is quite pathetic, really, that I still, anyway. But how do things work, or how I can't even think of examples because I'm still so repressed as well. But um, just real. Not. I don't want to talk about the news. I don't want to talk about the politicians stuffing things up again. I don't want to talk about there's been another terrorist attack, or I don't want to talk about that stuff. I don't want to talk about how was my day at work
Mm.
because I've left work and I don't want to talk about work anymore because I've got
Yeah.
more important things to talk about. But how to have just real deep down personal conversations where you can actually get to know a person,
Mm.
not knowing their external facade of what they present to everyone, but knowing the real person, what really makes them tick, what really pisses them off, what
Mm.
really makes them laugh, what is a genuine laugh versus just a pretend half-assed laugh. Like, yeah, whether it's people don't care whether they're emotionally pressed, if they have to hear those people's emotions, how do they deal with those emotions? Does that mean they're going to have to talk about their emotions? They don't want to talk about their emotions because they don't deal with their emotions because that's too scary. And then they've got to realize that, hey, they're not perfect. Um, yeah.
So what do
So
you like? What do you like at dealing with emotions? Because obviously, just let me put this foundation of idea out there. We are built, like every creature on the planet, to be fear-based creatures. Most of our emotions are fear-connected. They're
mm,
survival related, and that's why
yeah,
most people think fear is something we feel occasionally, as opposed to we're in a system of fear. The brain at the moment functions through a system of fear, and it creates the world that we see. That's why it's such a fear-based world and such a greedy world, because fear creates all that. Fear creates violence, it creates greed, it creates lust, it creates all the things that we're trying to control and stop. So here we are, not even acknowledging that we work in fear for a start. We haven't even acknowledged that.
mm,
Nearly everyone tells me I'm wrong when I say that. No, we're not. I don't feel fear. I feel fear occasionally. No, they don't understand what fear is. Fear is a mode
yeah,
of functioning. So here we are in a fear-based reality, which means, it leaves us quite unstable in many ways because it means we're on alert all the time, and that can put us in a very emotionally vulnerable space. Where do you sit in that? Like, how do you cope with life? And are you an emotional person? Do you struggle?
yes. Hello. Couldn't you tell that from the debate? I'm totally emotional person. But then I'm contradictory in so many ways. I have to be because, yeah, I'm a lawyer
Yeah.
and lawyers are all about facts.
Mm.
But, I'm also a person. I'm a person before I'm a lawyer. I can I can put my emotions aside if I'm at work and dealing with a work thing, but not all the time. If something pisses me off, I'm going to show that frustration, that anger. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't see a problem with that. I don't, I think people hide their emotions too often out of fear of the response that they're going to get, or that it's not appropriate. Um, there's a blog that I read the other day all about anger and unleashing your anger and finding power in your anger, and if you explode when you've been holding back your anger. And I totally agree with all of that. It's just really wearing your heart on your sleeve, and you know what, I'm really fucking pissed off today, or I just want to have a bottle of red wine and cry my eyes out, and accepting that that's okay.
And you do that?
Well, I haven't cried. Oh no, I cried on Saturday night because of what happened with my cat.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Do you cry
in the,
very often?
I don't cry as often now as I used to. I think I have less things to cry about now.
Mm.
I have a fantastic partner. Probably the best person I've ever been with in my entire life, who gives me great support. Um, Not 100% support. As we spoke on the phone, he eats meat. God forbid all the, extreme vegans out there. How could I possibly be with someone who eats meat? Because he's not me and I can't control him and I shouldn't
So,
control him.
well, what is your answer to that question,
He's
though?
an individual. The answer to my question is, if you asked me 2 years ago, if he was presented to me 2 years ago, would I have started a relationship with him? Probably not, because I was still so judgmental. But I've done I've spoken to a lot of people. I've done a lot of work within myself in terms of judging others and not judging others, and learning how we are each on our own individual paths. Whatever experiences we've had is what has led us to this point. They have not had the same experiences as we have. We can't expect them to have the same beliefs as we have because they haven't had the same experiences that we've had. We've had our experiences. We have our belief system based on our one, well, I believe in more than one life, but as I said before, but based on our one life.
Mm.
As I said to you, he's the most supportive partner I've ever had. He's the most loving partner I've ever had. If I said no to him because he eats meat, because he exercises his choice to eat rotting flesh, I would be like a lot of female animal advocates, and there are a lot out there who are single, because it's really hard on its own to find someone that you want to share your life with, let alone find someone who also shares the same values as you to the extent that they're vegan as well, or even vegetarian.
So is this not heading into the world of compromise, though, which is what's causing all the trouble on the planet? We compromise our own personal integrity for.
I don't think so, because his life does not impact my personal integrity. I impact my personal integrity. My integrity remains intact. I have not changed the way I live. Well, yes, I have changed the way I live my life because I live with a meat eater. But I also live with cats, and they eat meat. Why do they eat meat? Because they need to eat meat. And there are a lot of vegans out there who will say, no, they don't. Well, they do. And I don't care what you say about the science and whatever, and this cat's lived till, 25 on a vegan diet. There's always exceptions to the rules. But, so there's another reason why some vegans will, bash me because I feed my cats meat. But I have not changed my personal integrity. My belief system has not changed. I still don't think he should eat meat. He knows that. I would still prefer that he wouldn't eat meat. He knows that. But I should respect.
So you don't think it's a statement then of who he is as a person? You know what I mean?
It shows a side of him.
Doesn't it? Does it show a sign of coldness, do you think? Or because through this, right, through looking at your partner, you might get a better insight into all of humanity.
I mean, as I said to you, we're not all perfect. So for me, that's one of his imperfections. He wouldn't see it as an imperfection. And, I don't even see it as, I rephrase that. I don't see it as an imperfection. I see it as he doesn't have the, sorry, he's out there talking to a builder, so I'm a bit distracted. He doesn't have, he's not me. I can't make him me.
Okay, but this brings up a good topic. So let's forget your boyfriend for a second, though.
Does it change the goodness of the person because he doesn't have the understanding or the appreciation that animals deserve to live, and animals deserve not to suffer for something that is not, or even if it's necessary or whatever you want to talk about. I don't believe any use of animals is necessary. But it is interesting for me in terms of how do you deal with those people who there's nothing you can say that's going to change their mind. And there are so many people out there who eat meat who have nothing on him in terms of the goodness of his soul. He eats meat. Yeah, holy crap, I know. And it's like, ugh, he doesn't eat much of it, but he still eats it. And he does the whole thing, oh my God, I haven't had meat all week, I need to eat some meat. I'm like, please give me a break, have some leafy greens and some beans,
But, so therefore you're saying this
no kind of thing.
But you're
But
saying this man has a good heart and a good soul, and he's kind and caring and loving and all this kind of stuff, right?
like,
So this doesn't. So all I want to point out, the picture doesn't make sense.
yeah, I see. I totally
So,
see.
so how can someone be kind, caring, loving, and decent, and have a good soul? Because this is what we need to look at for all of humanity.
Yeah.
Are we bad people as a species or not? Or are we soft selling it? And do we soft sell it when it's a partner because we're getting something from them? Or like, what are we really looking at here? Because the fact is, he's not just saying, I like meat. He's saying, I take pleasure from
Mm.
the flesh ripped off the body of an innocent little being that once was a baby, that once had a mother, that has emotions and feelings. So let's get real about what we're talking about here. And I think we have to be, when it comes to personal partners and families, we often bend it a little bit in our own mind because it's easier to deal with it, right? But I think as a species, we have to. Do you hear what I'm saying? This is not a judgment of your
I
situation.
have friends who eat meat. I have colleagues who eat meat. Am I not to work in a place where there's people who eat meat? Am I not to when I go? And I know some people do this because I spoke with Dean about this. Am I not Dean, someone else about this in Sydney? Am I not when I go and buy a chai, coconut milk chai latte,
Mm.
and a colleague wants a coffee with cow's milk? Am I not going to buy her with her own money that coffee with cow's milk because I have personal opposition to it and I don't want to be facilitating her consumption of cow's milk? There are those there who no way in hell are going to buy their colleague a cow's milk coffee. But you know what? At the same time, we have to live in the community that we're in, and we're not going to get a change of heart or a change of mind if we alienate ourselves or if we hold ourselves out there as better people than they are, as people who have purer spirits than they do, just because our understanding and our appreciation is different. And
But that doesn't change the fact that they're addicted to something sick and unhealthy that's destroying the lives of other living beings. If I came across on the street and saw a kid beating a little puppy on the head with a stick, I'm not going to go, oh, hey, little fella, everyone to their own. I hope you're enjoying yourself, and think, well, my personal
mm,
opinion is that's wrong. I'm going to grab the stick, grab the kid, have a harsh talking to him, and then go save the puppy.
take the puppy, yeah.
So just because we can't see the cow being abused, what's the difference, right? I think that's
Mm,
we've been desensitized in society, and I think that's why there's so much confusion in all this, because I think we're all struggling, all of us. I think sitting in the truth is a hard thing to do. I don't think
yeah.
we're naturally built to do it, but I think that's where we need to sit. And I think it's not about you and your partner or this person or that person or this one's better because their partner's vegan. I think it's about we all have to keep growing, right? Because where we're at is not good enough. This situation you're in is not good enough. That won't save the
No,
planet,
but
right?
by me, interestingly though, by me being with him, I have an influence on a certain part of the community or a potential influence on a certain part of the community that I may not have been exposed to before.
Yeah.
He may always continue to eat meat, but there could be someone in his circle through the interaction with me that comes via him
Mm,
who gets influenced by me and becomes vegetarian or vegan themselves.
possibly, yes.
So, I
But I
with
guess the point I'm making, Ruth, is are we weakening our stance as an individual? That's all. Because let's say, because to me, I don't look at this as an opinion. I look at this as I got to where I got by just facing the truth. I didn't care what my opinions were or what my desires were. I just
mm,
kept looking at the truth, and the more truth comes my way, it keeps changing how I behave, and it doesn't change who I am. It changes how I interact with the world. And now, the depth of how I feel. I've always loved animals, but to now know how abused they are and to see that connection between a piece of meat and the little baby lamb or whatever creature it is that we stole it from, um, it's got to that point to me that the whole thing is obscene from beginning to end, right? And
yep,
that includes the obscenity of seeing another human being. So for me personally, if I had a partner who was eating meat, all I would see them as having they've always got dead corpses going through their digestive system and in their teeth, and I couldn't kiss someone
yep,
knowing
and
that I'd be picking out the dead flesh before I kiss them. Like,
that's fair enough, and that's you. But as you know, we're all different.
No,
Like, oh, there's a lot of it that they were all the same, but we're still all different.
but
And
this is
what are you proposing?
what I'm
That
proposing is,
vegans can only date vegans and vegetarians can only date vegetarians. And how are we going to have any influence if we're going to segregate the community that, yes, is already a segregated community? But how are we going to have an influence if we um, encourage still a segregation of the community?
because it's not
Isn't it?
about veganism, though. It's not about animal rights. It's about, are we being truthful, honest, decent human beings? Because when we're not, when we're deceptive and lying, conveniently putting the animal's pain and suffering over there because the pleasure is so lovely in here, right? That's not a healthy headspace.
But I don't think I'm doing that.
But you're supporting it. So what I'm saying is we all, and everyone's doing this in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to push a stronger message that I think we all individually need to get more real than we are, and we need to rise up much deeper, and we've got more questions to ask.
So what? I end this interview right now and go and break up with my boyfriend because I'm sorry, you eat meat, I can't be with you because that makes me less effective.
No, there's no right way for anybody to do anything. No one can tell you how to live, right? But what we
Yeah.
can do is share truth with each other in the hope that truth is enough to save this world, right? And that we are actually evolved enough and conscious enough and smart enough as a species to be able to absorb it. And the change will be a result of absorbing the truth, not about me telling you what you shouldn't do. I'm not having this discussion to tell you what you should do. I'm having this discussion because this is what humans avoid, right? It gets stuck in the judgment, and then you might, let's just say, traditionally think, bloody David, he's telling me what? Am I meant to leave my boyfriend? And then I go, and then before you know it, you tell me to F off, and that's the end of the discussion, right? Potentially. So
No, I would never do that. I'll just end up saying, look, I disagree with you and da 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 da.
But we can't leave our planet left at disagreement, like at that debate between, pro, saving animals and pro friggin' murdering them. We can't leave it as a debate, right? It's not good enough. We can't leave it as, oh, well, that's his opinion and that's my opinion, because in the meantime, animals are having their skin ripped off alive, for goodness sake. The guys in China and Korea that love beating a dead dog to death with a stick or hanging it from the neck and then ripping its skin off while it's alive, they don't see that as any different than the guy in Australia that goes roo hunting, duck hunting, or something.
It's not any different.
Well, it's not from a psychological point of view.
An animal is an animal. A cat is a dog. I
know, but that is still to skin something alive is pushing the boundaries on a heinous crime, right? Because if we found out there's a guy imagine your neighbor, he's got a basement, and you find out he collects children from school. No one knows where they go, but they're down there. He skins them alive and eats them, right? He would be considered the most vile human being on the planet.
Yep.
Suddenly, when you do it to a dog, you're not vile. It's like we trade with China. We don't give a shit, really. We say dog's a man's best friend. We don't give a shit about them, is the truth of it. All we give a shit about is ourselves. So what I'm saying is we're trapped in a very selfish place, which is allowing for global state of insanity, right? And we've got to challenge each other more in a caring, loving way, right? Not to put you down or put me down. Yep. We're going to do it with love. We're here. We're going to talk from our hearts, right? Not from our minds. Our minds will always create an opinion, and an opinion is a judgment, and that will always make someone, if it doesn't match their opinion, either pull away or fight back against yours.
Yep.
But we have to be prepared to have these conversations, or how are we ever going to get there? Like if I can't talk to you about your boyfriend not being on the same, because your journey is so extremely into the the animal thing, and so therefore it brings up a topic, and we need to start looking at that all. It's not about what you do whatever you want to do, right? But I'm not going to stop as one individual sharing truth or how I see the world, because I have an obligation to share as much as I can and share it as openly and honestly as I can, and also put in the work to understand what I can see, right? So I don't just put it out there randomly. I get human behavior. I've spent my life trying to understand it. Not because I had a dad that was a psychologist or anything like that. I had the furthest influence in the world from that. But what I did see right from a child is that people are nasty, right? Kids at school are picking on the weak kids, the fat kids, the this kid, the smelly kid, and they get pleasure from it. And I remember when I was 5 or 6 thinking how horrible that was. And I used to try and defend the kids that were being picked on. So, and the older I got, I found out nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Then you grow into society and they're more sophisticated about it. They've even disguised all the abuse under laws, and then, suddenly now picking on a baby lamb is not abuse anymore, it's
Mm.
food. So, you
It's all
know,
connected.
if you want to get honest about what's going up here, it's pretty sick, right?
Mm.
So I don't see it as, so and so eats meat and my work colleague drinks a coffee. I see it as we're all sick, right? And we need help. And we got no one to help us, so we have to help ourselves,
Mm.
right? So we're going to have to do some self therapy here on planet Earth, because there's no wiser alien from 1,000 years from now that's going to come down and help us out.
Yeah.
And until we get deeper into understanding the truth of what drives us, and be prepared to look at our own lives, then how are we ever going to get there? You know what I mean?
Mm.
We're never going to shift enough, and the time frame is too slow. The level of conversation is way too
Mm.
low, and I think I said this to you on the phone. The enormity of what we're being presented with is so much greater than the level of conversation we have. If you look at the level of conversation of, say, Obama,
Yeah.
like when he's asked about animals, his first answer was, this is a while ago, so I don't know what he says now, but the only thing I've ever heard him say, I love my barbecues. Let me tell you, he says, there's a man leading the planet that his only answer could be, I love my barbecues.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then came up with some crap dribbling out of his mouth after that, which is unfortunate, right? And that, because the man is intelligent and he's got
Mm.
speaking abilities, he's got so much going for him, but he's not prepared to open himself up to the truth of life, because that's what leaders and everyone needs to be doing. So it's not going to come from the leaders. It's not going to come from politics. The law is probably going to do very little. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's going to come from people like you, me, and whoever getting stronger within ourselves about how we really feel about this. So that's what
Mm.
I say to you. I don't choose not to have, I'm a single man because I haven't found a woman to connect with at the moment in my life. I've
Yeah.
found people at various times. Right now, I don't have that. But
Mm.
that's not about them being vegan or not. Because to me, if I meet someone that I can connect with, well, they're going to love animals, and then therefore they'll come on that journey with me. Otherwise, they're a person that loves animals selectively. I would
Mm.
only connect with a person that loves animals completely, and
Yep.
that loves life completely. So I know I'm dealing with a real person sitting in the truth that can go on a journey with me, and we can grow together. So it's not about them being, because they might be a meat eater today, and after a week of being together and facing the truth, then we'll be on a journey together in veganism or whatever. So
Mm.
veganism to me is, I wish we were way past it. I wish there wasn't even a word like
Mm.
that. I wish it was just a
Yeah. Yeah.
given. We eat plants and that's it. Great. So the real point out of all this is that we can look at our lives and we can justify. Everyone can justify everything, right?
Mm.
But are we being honest enough? Are we being real enough? Like how do you cope with life? Just as a question, because the world is in a mess. Do you live it as if it is in a mess? And I don't mean to dramatize it or focus on it as a negative, because obviously there's hope and there's potential within the human species, but the truth of where we're at is not a pretty picture in the truth of where we're at. How does that affect you as an individual, and how do you deal with that? Because this is what this is all about. How are we going to deal with what we're
Yeah.
seeing?
From a how do I deal with it? Well, I remove myself
Mm,
from a lot of the world.
yeah,
Um, I spend time in nature. Every Saturday and Sunday I'm lucky to live 5 minutes down the road from bush. So every Saturday and Sunday I go and spend, the 2 days combined, like 3 hours just being in nature. No music, just walking in nature.
yeah,
Um, I go through phases where I do yoga and meditation. I'm in a phase right now where I haven't done much yoga and meditation, but then that walking in nature is a form of meditation in
yeah,
itself. So that kind of keeps me grounded. Um, I'm I eat well. My health is important. If I wasn't healthy, I wouldn't be performing to the best of my ability. I wouldn't be able to be as productive in terms of the work that I do. So that's a big part. I think I try and make sure I get enough sleep, basic things really, to make sure that I am on the ball
Mm.
and can appreciate and identify what's important or what I need to spend my time on versus what I don't need to spend my time on.
Do you have
And
moments where you just feel like, the whole thing's too much or too weird or too difficult, or do you manage to keep it
not
on a straight line?
not when it comes to animals, because I couldn't stop what I do. Um, being vegan is never too hard. It's easy. Um, the only thing that, I mean, the hardest thing is people not getting the message. But I never give up, because if I give up, what about the animals? You
Mm.
know, they don't, they need us to fight for them. They can't win this.
No,
So there's no way in the world I would ever give up. I don't have the faculty, I can't. So it's not an option. Um, and yeah, I need to keep fighting the fight. I need to do all those things. I need to make sure my life is relatively balanced. I know when I'm, I get a bit crazy and psycho when things are out of balance. So I can identify that, and I know how to bring it back.
mm.
Exercise, that's important.
Mm.
Just the basic things, basic ways of living, eating well, moving, getting time in nature, taking time to stop and breathe.
Mm.
And, I read spiritual based books to give me a greater understanding of why we're here. What's the point of being here? There has to be a point. All that stuff that's, trendy at the moment, find your purpose, whatever, whatever, whatever. I believe in that
Find
100%.
your what, sorry?
Find your purpose.
Right.
What have you been put on this planet to achieve in this lifetime?
Mm.
Most people will achieve nothing. Most people are happy just to go to work, pay the bills, come home, eat dinner, put the TV on, go to bed, repeat it all over and over and over and over and over. That's where they're at. So I think a lot of time looking inward rather than external. Knowing obviously all the shit that's happening in terms of, just talking about animals here, because there's a lot of shit that's going on out there that I don't know about.
Mm.
Because I don't see myself as having any influence in those things, so I don't spend my energy on those things where I don't believe I have influence. I'd never get anything done. So
Is
yeah,
there, is there anything that holds you back, Ruth, in terms of within yourself, like self-doubt or anything? Like, do you have to push through fears and insecurities to get to where you need to be, or
yeah, of course.
yeah,
I just want to. I'm just trying to motion to. I'm trying to see. Sorry, and
that's all
maybe I
right.
can edit this out. If my boyfriend needs to come in here.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
that's all right.
So where was I? Yes, yes. What was the question again?
Uh,
Fears, insecurities.
well, yeah, in terms of what holds us back, because I mean, obviously, this is what the world's not standing up in the truth yet because of our insecurities, right? That's why people don't speak up for themselves. That's why we don't. Like, a lot of vegans are sort of submissive in a sense because they haven't dealt with their own insecurities as such. So we can see that insecurities is a manifestation of fear and it's a natural part of human existence. But at the moment, it's really showing up how important it is that we need to get past them, because if it starts keeping truth withheld, then it becomes a dangerous thing. So I
Mm,
think that's why individually, if anything, I encourage, like, you try and help the animal rights movement, through the angle of law and support in that sense. And my way
mm,
is to try and encourage them to stand up stronger in themselves and and,
yeah,
and not let their fears and insecurities define their existence. Because you can still be insecure and end up being a good person, but for a lot of people, that fear simply creates it stops them facing anything outside of, like you were talking about earlier, what their learning is. So if you've grown up in a culture that says having barbecues and eating baby lamb is okay, then obviously, you've got to be quite confident and fearless to be able to step past your known realm, because that's the fear world. Otherwise, you'd look past it, right?
Mm,
So our whole constructive learning is just a constructive fear. We don't see it that way, but otherwise we wouldn't defend ludicrous things, like the abuse of animals. But so it's important we look at this. Like I look at it in myself a lot. I look at my life, what stops me doing more, saying more, standing up more on the truth. And it's always
mm,
fear, scared of reprisal, scared of standing out there on my own and then looking around, there's no one behind you. And suddenly you've just woken up the beast and the beast is looking at you and the beast is thinking, look at you standing out there in the paddock on your own, and just comes along and eats you, which in reality is a cop puts handcuffs on you and throws you in jail, and they trump up charges, which they can do at any moment, at any time, if they see you as a threat to the system. And
mm.
the fact is, people speaking truth are a threat to the system. So
Yeah.
there are many reasons to have fears and insecurities, but unfortunately, if we let them guide our lives, then I think we're screwed. And also, if you're too fearful, it can make you go off track in terms of how you get your message out there. Like you were saying, we're creating divisiveness, and we obviously have to create unity.
Mm,
So one can learn to be strong, stand in the truth, and speak with clarity, and take divisiveness away. Ultimately, which is what we're here to do. We've got to like literally rip it out of the fabric of life and just start looking and talking to each other for real, without all those little masks that we walk around with. And again, if we weren't insecure, we wouldn't need those masks. We just, hey, hi, I'm here. So
yeah.
it's a natural state, but it's a natural state that's actually needs to stop, and it can stop by consciously awakening oneself. And consciousness is such a misunderstood thing in our lives, but it's the pure us. It's the us that doesn't function in fear. It's the us that sits in the truth. It's the us that doesn't defend ourselves. There is nothing to defend. There's just
Mm,
me and there's life. Why would I defend myself? There is nothing. In my conceptual world, which is my fear world, I'm always defending it potentially.
yeah.
So yeah, it's about looking at ourselves and asking what could I do to be more? What can I do to grow? And I guess you've spoken about some of the things you do in terms of keeping your mind and your body healthy and reading about spirituality.
Mm.
Um, so do you feel you're keeping up with the growth of getting bigger than your fears, or do you feel sometimes it gets the better of you and insecurities take over, or where are you at the moment in your life?
Um, I certainly have fears, and insecurities. God, yeah, I'm human, as you say, we all have them.
That's right.
If we want to connect it back to advocating for animals, um, I don't I don't have fear of speaking out. I don't have fear of having the conversations. I don't have fear in going up to a politician and say, hey, have you ever thought about this, or where do you stand on this? Or I don't have fear to, you know, stand up and express my viewpoint on an issue, even though everyone out there in the audience potentially, or at least a lot of them, will disagree with me.
Yeah.
But I guess, and I've, maybe when I left Voiceless, that was done out of fear. I don't know if you really unpacked it. Um, fear, fear that it was. I can't even. It's hard for me. I've never really looked at it from that perspective.
Well, look at it in
Um,
terms of fear. Fear gives us choice, right? This is why we're in a world of choice, because we're in a world of fear. So we keep creating new choices. In the truth, you just know this is either okay for me or not okay for me. So there's no decision to be made as such, right? Does
I yeah. I mean,
that make sense?
yeah. I think my biggest fear is I'm not doing enough.
Right.
I could be doing more. Um,
What would
you
that
know,
look like? What would that be?
I'd be doing this not 24/7, because I need to sleep and go for walks and stuff,
Sure.
and eat. But I spend a huge chunk of my time at work,
Mm,
which, as we spoke about, is not connected to animals. I mean, you could say, well, yes, there is connection there because it pays my bills and allows me to do pro bono work. Um, but and then that's connected to fear and insecurity, of course, because why don't I just leave my job?
Mm.
And why don't I just do all this all full time?
Mm.
Because, of course, there is that fear. How do I pay my bills if I don't have a secure income?
Mm.
So it's more to do with that kind of stuff with me in terms of where I'm at now. It's really just, occasion will come up and I'm not doing enough, or I should be writing a submission to that inquiry and I'm not.
Mm.
Um, but I don't bash myself up about it. But that's probably,
I mean, those things are big things, though, aren't they? Because we become, we build a life, and we as much as you're saying, you don't want an iWatch or, but but
yeah,
but but we still, you got a nice kitchen there, and you're talking on a Mac computer, and
yep,
so you still got some of the good things. And sometimes I think for people, facing the truth in this world is very hard because it might mean we all have to give up some of our shit, right, that we've created
yeah,
because
yeah.
a lot of what we've created has come from corruption.
Mm,
And we're hoping we can keep it and become good people at the same time. And I think that's where it is difficult. And I think fear keeps us trapped. So it does hold us back because, we're trying to maintain our lifestyles. It's like vegans. They love, like anyone else, going out to restaurants and dining and meeting at the pub and doing all the things everyone does. And I think a lot of them don't want to give up their life. They still want to think that they can, be a wanter in this world, which means narrow frameworks. So that they're prepared to look at the animal thing, but then they go back to narrow when it comes to their personal life. Hence, they don't do anything about what they see. In the
mm,
main, very few of them do anything, really, considering how many there are. And the ones that do it in an edited way and often do it to make a business out of it. So
yep,
and which is fine. But if that's your reason for doing it, then that's not a good reason. Your reason for doing it
mm,
has to be to bring truth into the world, and then a career will grow out of that desire, out of that. So I look at it, the truth grows from within, and it's something that is a conscious state, and then we see what we see, we don't debate it and question it, and then our journey and purpose unfolds from that.
mm,
Right? But if you're on a strategic journey, then you strategize what the world is, you analyze yourself, your personality, my life, my relationships, my home, where I'm at, and what can I afford to give up, what am I prepared to do, and we
mm,
do an
yep,
account balance on our life. And that's
yep,
a slow, limited, sludgy way for change to ever happen, obviously. And that's why, hence, Peter Singer's prediction is that the animal rights movement will take 100 years like every other movement. And he's absolutely right if we keep going the way we're
mm,
going, presuming there's a planet in 100 years. But
yep,
because I'm putting forward that that's not the case because, you know, I diverge from Peter in as much as I agree with him about a lot of what he says. But in terms of where we're heading, there's a psychological deterioration happening because of fear. And fear is what's stopping the vegan movement. It's what's stopping people becoming vegan. It's what causes
mm,
all, child abuse and all the problems on the planet. Why we have starving children on the planet because fear creates a place where we'll sacrifice our integrity more, right? Because
mm,
because we're desperate to feel good when we're fearful. When we're insecure, we're not feeling good about ourselves. So we need things to make us feel good all the time, and it's a very dangerous pathway that we're on. So I just feel like we've just got to somehow. I don't know really how we're going to do this. I just thought that for me, I thought let's just start talking about it.
mm,
Rather than coming up with big plans and strategies, I thought let's just see what happens on planet Earth if we start talking about the truth of what's going on and see whether we're prepared to face that,
yeah,
one at a time, you and me right now, and then another person, and hopefully others listen, and to see whether we're prepared to admit where we're at, rather than everyone blaming everyone else for everything, and because it is a waste of time. It's stupid
mm,
because yelling at a meat eater you might be talking to one of the kindest people in the world that just hasn't had a chance to be educated yet, and you're
yeah,
ranting and raving about nothing effectively. So we don't want to
mm,
waste our energy, on stupid things. But it all still ultimately comes back to each individual. And in this case, it's you or me.
yep,
And how much are you and I prepared to face our fears to be, so we can get more truth out in the world,
mm,
is what it ultimately gets down to. People can debate that, but I can't see where the debate is. It's obvious to
yep,
me that that's what's holding us back. And we're rightly scared of each other because everybody's in a fear state, so we can't trust each other,
mm,
right? So we all lie to each other. We'd all steal from each other, given the opportunity. Everyone's out to get what they want for themselves. Couples can be in a loving relationship and suddenly another person comes along and they'll just turn on that person.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
The person that loved you for 10 years can just, boom. So, no, we can't trust each other. That's the truth. But if we keep staying that way, then we're screwed as far as I'm concerned. So we have to work out how to get past our differences, our disagreements. We've got to learn to talk through our insecurities. We've got to admit that we have them, and we've got to be honest about what it's doing to this planet. And then hopefully from that honesty creates a more expansive pathway for consciousness to rise in. Because consciousness needs an expansive space to exist in. Right? Fear can exist down narrow. In fact, it likes it. It likes dark places in the mind. It likes, that's why all the little sick weirdness when people are too trapped and insecure and fearful, they do weird shit. And the more they're like that, the weirder they get. Sexuality is a perfect example. It just becomes insatiable. The next thing people are, doing weird shit to each other and justifying it. When that's all come from a fear and insecurity, ultimately. So I just think we've got to face our fears. We've got to somehow realize that there's a conscious journey to be had here. We can't work it out in our current mode of thought that we're currently in, right? Because I think, all your efforts and mine and everyone's will be in vain if we don't address why and what the energy is that's creating this world that we're in. Because the human brain is not an issue. I can tell you, fear in the human brain creates the world we see. Consciousness in the human brain creates the world that we'd like to have. So it's possible, but we've got to really get on it and start getting real that this has got to start happening. This has got to be implemented. This has to eventually be recognized by world leaders. It's got to be recognized by school systems that children can't just keep being educated to be trained to be another part of the machine to take from planet Earth. They're going to be, they're going to be taught how to feel. And then when they're taught how to feel, you don't have to tell them what to do, right? Because if you can feel the truth of this world, I've got this quote where I say, if we could feel the truth of the pain and suffering that's going on this planet, that animals are experiencing particularly, our minds would drown in tears of sorrow and remorse immediately. We would be horrified and shocked and tragically sad in that moment if we could suddenly feel the truth of what's going on planet Earth. And I include your partner or anyone on this planet. If they actually felt the truth, they would break down and there'd be a sobbing mess on the ground and they would be changed forever and they would never partake in anything abusive ever again.
So how do we get them to do that?
We do that by first seeing whether we can get them acknowledged that this needs to be done in the first place, right? Because if you just rush out saying, this is what we have to do, that's too extreme from where we're at. But if I bring it back to basics, okay, can we first admit that this is going on? Can we admit that our own insecurities are getting in the way? I'm happy to admit they get in the way of me. I work on them. I cleanse them. I shine light on them because you can't fight with your insecurities, but you can see them and stop justifying them. And if you stop justifying them, they start disappearing, right? They've got to be fed. You know what I mean? Everything unhealthy in our brain requires daily feeding of thought to keep it alive. If you stop feeding it with your sick thoughts, it goes away. And it's only in a conscious state that we can do that. And unfortunately, but it's good news. The good news is we're not just stuck in one mode of thought, because that mode is a self-destructive one and it would never stop. There's nothing any of us could do to stop it. It's bigger than any individual, no matter how smart you are or how aware you are or how powerful you are. But consciousness can. But consciousness is dormant at the moment. It's held captive by fear, and it's so it needs to be brought to life. And I think that the animal rights issue forces people to think more. That's what I think it's really doing is potentially shaking up humanity, which might lead to bigger discussions, which is what I'm attempting to do with my journey, is to not just get stuck on animal rights, because animal rights exposes that we're trapped in a fear-based reality. We need to wake up to that, really wake up, right, and become conscious beings. And then it's not about the bits and pieces and he does this and she does that and Peter Singer does this and Ruth does that, and with her damn honey, damn her, damn that Ruth. It's about us getting, accepting that everything's a bit of a mess right now, and we've got to get past that, but we've got to get a lot more real than we currently are. And yes, that is going to be a challenge, Ruth. I don't have a precise answer for you, or other than to do what I'm doing. I don't know what else to do other than to talk to people. Right? I can't see any point telling anyone what to do. That's not going to do a damn thing. That goes against everything I know. So I've just got to keep attempting to see whether we can at least get honest about it. You know, because honesty, don't ever underestimate honesty. Honesty is a powerful thing for changing life from within and with others. You know, just being honest to someone. We won't be honest because we don't want to hurt their feelings. But that's ridiculous. So here we are, this species that's so cold-hearted that we don't even give a shit about dog skins being ripped off their bodies while alive, but don't hurt my feelings. You know what I mean? We're so precious, and we've got to get past that preciousness. That we've become quite pathetic as a species. And I think if we could see how pathetic we've become, we'd shake our heads and go, what the hell was I doing? Why am I behaving like that? And no one needs to take it personally because everyone's just a little baby born in this system, and this system represses everyone. And that's why they all become about getting what they want, because they're so repressed they want to go to school or go to uni and get their piece of the pie. You know, they want to take their piece of planet Earth so they can munch away on it. But I think, you know, we can get past that. So this is what unity is going to take for me. This is what I feel, because I agree with you. That's what's required. But I think it's going to have to dig really deep and get real about what we are as a species to ever get there, which means we can't defend it, right? Somehow we need to go like this, all put our arms around each other so no one's fighting anyone. Let's step back from reality and have a damn look at it together, you know, together. Not with you over there and me here. No, Ruth, you're wrong. David, I don't agree with you, right? We could do that forever. And then what if you agree with everything I say? Oh, great, let's hang out and be friends, Ruth. We agree with everything we say to each other. That's not going to help either, right? We have to be able to sit in a place where we can all see it, because it's there to be seen. You know what I mean? It's not a mystery. It's just our distortion. We're distorting everything. And hence we live in an edited reality. And that's why I call this unedited space, to attempt to see whether we can unedit this shit and just get it real and hopefully create some movement on the planet. So where we go from there and how this transcends, I don't know, but I know we're running out of time, and I know, you know, I'd like to do more, and the only way I can do more is to be more confident, which means removing fears, because you can't become more confident. Confidence is a byproduct of getting your fears out of the way. You know, everyone's confident when they're not fearful. You know, so for me, this is the challenge. And, you know, like when I talk to you on that level about the planet, how does that sit with you? Like sitting here listening now, what is that? What goes through your mind, and what are you thinking and feeling listening to this?
In the first thought was, bloody hell, that's going to be really hard. You know, even just getting people to be truthful, challenge in itself.
Yeah.
Certainly there is a need for that open, honest communication. How do you get to understand where a person is coming from in order to encourage them to make change for you know, for a positive outcome? And part of me thinks, you know, how is that going to happen?
Well, the fact is it can happen. Well, it can happen, right?
How are you going to get the, you know, the Tony Abbotts, the Barnaby Joyces of the world to sit down and have a conversation and try and get them to understand reality, to understand what they're spruiking, that all the money they're making is off the back of poor defenseless animals, particularly Barnaby Joyce, of course. You know, how do you get those people to see reality when they're so closed off to anything but doing things that are going to help them individually? Nothing else matters. They do what they do and they put it out there that they're doing this for the public good, but that's a load of crap because it's what they see as valuable. It's what they want. And yeah, there's people out there who agree with them. Of course there are, because, we're we're all so similar in so many ways, and some people, share this, you've got people, subsets of the human race that share the same views. They stick together. So those kind of people, the way I've always seen it is you've got no chance in hell, so don't waste your energy on them. They're never going to see the truth. But at the same time, you can't preach to the converted, because that's also a waste of time. And yeah, it still plagues me as to how do we get a bigger take up? How do we get more people to see the truth?
Well, I think we start. I think like getting Barnaby Joyce or Tony Abbott to have this conversation with me is probably slim to none.
Yes, exactly. They won't even have the conversation.
No, but there are people. I think we've got to just find who will. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's James Cameron, maybe it's some other influential people in the world. It may not be a politician. They probably never will have an honest conversation because of their job. And I can almost understand that. They'd just get themselves in a mess probably by opening up and being honest. Or the world, they might get a surprise and they might actually find the world loves them for their first politician to ever be honest in the history of humanity.
If they ever have the guts
that's right.
to do that, yeah.
But we can start with those that will, whether that be just you and me having a shot at this, right? It's a bit clumsy. I don't always, I don't know exactly where we should go with this conversation or what we should do, but at least we're having it.
Yeah.
At least we're talking about it. We're talking about what's going on. We're exposing our personal feelings as well and our personal lives and putting it on the table and having an attempt at it. And I think that's where it starts. And I think there's enough people that will do that. This is new what I'm doing here, but everyone said yes so far. Whether it be Peter Singer to Paul or whoever, there hasn't been a trouble with people at least igniting it with the idea of having the conversation. And I think that's the starting point. And then hopefully we, can attract in bigger people to the conversation that have a lot of power and influence. I'd love to think, if somebody had the ability to make a beautiful movie, could sit down and have this discussion and then be inspired about what their next movie is going to be, because they've suddenly felt and understood life in a way that they hadn't before, or they hadn't thought about it to the degree to which, maybe these conversations can take it to. So I think it's going to take some patience because we'd all like everything to change overnight. That's human nature. I'm certainly not a proponent of the 100-year plan, but I am a proponent of standing in the truth today, and then it'll take as long as it takes. Right? If it takes one day, great. If it takes 100 years, that's sad. But if that's the best truth could do to get us there, then that's the way it is. And that's not for me or anyone else to argue with or decide. But the main thing is, Ruth, we've got to start getting it out there. You know what I mean? And we've got to start having these conversations in a way that doesn't create divisiveness, that does spread it out. Which is why I hope people respect your honesty today, rather than feeling the need to judge you or attack your character as a woman, and just respect the fact that you are a good woman doing a lot on this planet, more than most human beings will ever do in their lifetime, to save the lives of others. And yes, in essence, that is what matters, because we can all improve and all learn. There's no question about that. We can all change and whatever. We all need to.
Too many armchair advocates out there.
And there are, and they don't know what it's like to get out there and do this. It's not easy. You've got to push yourself, and I think it's courageous. Even when I watched you on that debate, I felt for you. I felt you, like you were like, if anyone had big feelings, it was like yours were like twice as tall as everyone else's. I was like, but my thought was, what a courageous woman to even put yourself in that situation, and I do applaud you for that. And I think that so let's just look at this as your part with me in this particular phase of sharing, and we all keep doing stuff outside of this, right? But I think this kind of conversation is also essential, that we start trying to get down to the nitty gritty and see and who knows, maybe, in 6 months, these conversations will be going to because people will know what they're coming into, and they'll spark up more and they'll be thinking more. They might have had a dinner party talking about it prior, and then they're more loosened up for it, whereas at the moment, we've got to work our way into this. And particularly, facing that what's really causing this is a big thing to face. Because to think that that's all just fear in the human brain, you could literally focus on nothing else but how fear works, teach humans how not to function in fear, and I guarantee you everyone would be a vegan plus everything else that's good. Guarantee it, right? So you wouldn't have to teach them anything in that matter or need to repress them or make them or get through to them or nothing. But obviously, that's a huge task in itself. But we first, like I said, got to get to the point where we acknowledge that this is real, and even if people don't agree with me, it's not fear, David. Well, then what is it? Tell me. You know what I mean? What is it that makes us behave so badly? Because as far as I'm concerned, I can see it's fear. And if it's not fear, then we need to work out, are we being drugged by some alien that knows how to keep us under control? Are we caught up? Are we
being brainwashed?
That's right. Who knows?
By the government.
Whatever the case may be, we need to get honest with ourselves. And so I thank you for your honesty, because that's what this is all about. And,
you're welcome.
And you've been extremely honest, I must say. And I appreciate that, because there are no wrongs or right in that. And we can all grow from our honesty. And where it gets stupid, because if I judge you, then I've held you in that space. Right? What's the point? I look at it as, let's be honest. And honesty is a growth thing anyway. And it's very rare if someone keeps on an honest journey that their life will stay stagnant in the same place of,
it's always evolving.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's what we've got to give each other the chance to do. So, well, look, I reckon that's probably a nice note to finish on. I don't want to push it too hard because it is a huge topic, and it,
Yep, I'm getting wary.
That's right, and it is, and that's why we don't do it, right? That's why we don't do it, because it is exhausting, and I know that, and I do my best to make it not exhausting, but I can't go into it in fairyland. I know this is going to be challenging for people.
Yeah.
And they're going to feel very protective of their worlds and whether they're healthy or not. And I guess, my role, my purpose is to try and alleviate some of that pain so they can have the courage to sit in the truth more, so we can create that unity that you're talking about.
Yep.
And then we'll see what happens. So, and look, maybe too, and if you ever would like to come back at a point down the track and discuss again and join back in and see where things are at and see where other people are talking, you're always welcome, Ruth, because you're a wonderful person. You've got great things to say, and I'd always love to share with you again if you're ever open to it. So,
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. No
problem. Thank you, David.
A busy lady with lots going on, so it's really is appreciated. So, all right. Well, all the best, and hopefully there'll be some contact, to stay in touch, and maybe one day we'll chat again.
Yep. Okay.
All right, Ruth.
All right. I'll be interested to see where this all goes, where it all ends up.
So will I.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
See you. Bye.